So there's this ancient kingdom called Aria, right? We are talking way before the extinction of dragons. The king of Aria and his brave knights are like, let's go hunt down this massive dragon. They're trekking through these stunning hills, following the beast's tracks, when they stumble upon this mysterious cave. Out of nowhere, this fire-breathing dragon queen emerges and obliterates most of the knights in one fell swoop. The remaining knights form a circle around the king, and in a split second, the dragon uses her tail to take care of the knights. Finally, she saunters up to the king, who's on his knees, ready to face his destiny. Fast forward a bunch of centuries later, and we're in this far-off northern land. These two sisters, Floria and Elodie, are busting their butts chopping wood to keep their people warm and fed during this brutal winter and famine. They're the daughters of the local ruler, so they're doing everything they can to help out their subjects. But here's the kicker. More and more folks are bailing on the town, and it's on the verge of becoming a ghost town. Suddenly, the sisters spot a carriage rolling through, which is like super rare in this remote area. They race back home and find their dad, Lord Bayford, and their stepmom, Lady Bayford, chatting with this mysterious nun. Before she takes off, the nun mentions that Elodie's got this important mission to fulfill, and then Lord Bayford drops the bomb. The royal family of Aria wants Elodie to marry their prince. At first, Elodie's like, nope, not happening. But her dad convinces her that this marriage will bring in enough cash to keep the town afloat for years. So the family sets sail for Aria. As they're getting close, the ship enters this thick fog, and the travelers start freaking out when they see these terrifying silhouettes. Turns out they're two gigantic dragon statues guarding the entrance to the kingdom. When the family finally arrives at their destination, they're like, whoa, this place is beautiful. The country is thriving, and the castle is straight up magnificent. The staff escorts them to their rooms, letting them know they'll be meeting the royal family the next day. Elodie steps out onto the balcony to take in the breathtaking views, and she spots this girl around her age on the next balcony over. But before she can say anything, a maid whisks the girl away. Later that night, Elodie's tossing and turning, so she decides to pass the time by sketching. She heads out to the balcony for some fresh air and notices that the other girl's room is pitch black. But that's not all. She also spots these mysterious torches burning in a distant hill in the middle of the night. The next day, Elodie's family meets up with the royal crew. Queen Isabel is all like, hey Elodie, why don't you hang out with Prince Henry before you two tie the knot? At first, they're both a little shy, but soon enough they're hitting it off and chatting away. When Henry compliments Elodie's artistic skills, which he noticed in her letters, she asks him about those burning torches from the night before. Henry explains that it's one of 3 ancient ceremonies they do to honor their ancestors, and that's why they planned the wedding for the same day. Meanwhile, Lord Bayford wraps up his negotiations with Queen Isabel, and he seems pretty shaken up. Lady Bayford tries to calm him down, but he insists everything's cool. Later on, Lady Bayford tries to have a chat with Isabel, but the Queen seems dismissive. Lady Bayford tries to be friendly by suggesting that now the two families will be one, they should get to know each other more. However, Isabel is all like, nah, this is just a business deal. I need a princess, and Bayford's lands need cash. She even throws some shade at Lady Bayford, reminding her that she's a rope maker's daughter and shouldn't forget her place. Queen Isabel even pronounces Elodie's name incorrectly and ignores Lady Bayford, who tries to point out her mistake. Later that evening, Lady Bayford is getting pretty worried and wants to warn Elodie that something fishy is going on. She even suggests calling off the wedding, but before they can get into it, Lord Bayford shows up and tells everyone to hit the hay. The next morning, the maids are helping Elodie get ready for the big day. She gets this stunning dress with a hidden blunt dagger and a vial of mysterious perfume. The wedding goes off without a hitch. Henry and Elodie exchange rings, smooch, and Elodie gets her crown. After saying goodbye to her fam, the newlyweds hop in a carriage. Henry tells Elodie that they're heading to this ancient ritual up on the mountain. As they climb the rocky stairs, Elodie is shocked to see people wearing these freaky golden masks and Queen Isabel dressed up as a nun. The Queen hands Elodie a coin, saying it'll help protect the kingdom, and then they head into the cave. Isabel starts telling this story about the first settlers who came to the island, which was home to the last dragon. The beast attacked the village, so the king gathered his soldiers to face it. The dragon killed everyone except the king, who had to sacrifice his 3 daughters so the people could share the island with the monster. As Elodie listens to the story, she notices everyone staring at her, and the bridge they're crossing hangs over a massive drop. What a scary ritual. Isabel explains that the king's sacrifice is commemorated every generation. She cuts Henry and Elodie's hands and joins their bleeding wounds, covering them with a cloth. She announces that Elodie now has royal blood. Elodie tosses the coin into the abyss, thinking the ritual is over. Henry picks her up to carry her across the bridge, but then he's like, "Sorry about this," and chucks her into the void. As she's falling, Elodie screams, hits some branches, and lands knocked out in a muddy puddle. When she comes to her senses, she's all banged up and calls for help, but there's no one left on the bridge. Unknown to her, her voice awakens a dragon residing in the cave. What was meant to be a great day was about to get really messy. At first, she's crying, but when her despair turns to rage, she rips off her jewelry and tries to get out. She falls again, getting even more beat up. When she spots some unfamiliar jewelry, it hits her that the royal family has been sacrificing girls to the dragon for years. Suddenly, she hears a noise and sees a light in the cave. Going inside, she finds a burning bird. When Elodie tries to put out the fire with dirt, it turns out the bird is already dead. The cave echoes with a roar, and hundreds of burning birds fly out and circle the girl before dropping dead around her. Realizing she might be in danger, Elodie tries to find a way out. Then she sees the dragon approaching and freezes in terror. She hides behind a stalagmite, and the dragon starts talking, saying that each generation of the royal family has to pay a debt. The dragon tells Elodie that the scent of her blood sells her out as a member of the royal family. Looking at her scar, Elodie realizes the ceremony was meant to trick the dragon. The beast tells her to run, so she bolts towards a tunnel, with the dragon breathing fire behind her. Even though the flames are filling the tunnel, she finds a safe spot at the last second. In the tunnel, she stumbles upon a burnt body and recognizes it as the girl from the balcony. Hearing the dragon getting closer, Elodie tries to squeeze through a narrow opening, but her dress gets stuck. She struggles to rip off the crinoline and manages to hide in a smaller cave. But the fire reaches her leg, making her scream in pain. Even though the dragon hears her, it can't reach her because there's not enough room for its massive body. As the beast moves away, Elodie remembers the blunt dagger. She sharpens it on a rock and cuts off part of her dress to bandage her burned leg. Next, Elodie opens the perfume vial, which creates a makeshift lantern when lit. As she explores the cave, she finds a super narrow tunnel. While crawling through, her dress gets stuck again. When she pulls on it and frees herself, she slides back down, desperately trying to grab onto something. But her injured hands can't hold on, and she falls with the fire in the vial going out. Not giving up, she gets back up and, using the wall for support, heads towards a light she sees in the distance. After a few steps, she makes it out of the tunnel, but nearly falls off the edge of a cliff. Right after taking off her wedding ring and throwing it into the abyss, Elodie still sees the light on the other side. She backs up and runs to make a big jump. Turns out the other side of the cliff is slippery and she can't hold on. Luckily, as she's sliding down, her belt catches on a rock. When it breaks, it gives her just enough time to pull out the dagger and jam it into a crevice to hold on. Then, she uses the dagger to climb higher. At the top, she discovers that the light is coming from cute, glowing slugs. After making sure they don't bite, She rips off her puffy sleeve and puts a few creatures inside to create a new lantern. Moving on, she comes across a small lake, but the water tastes disgusting because of the cave vegetation. However, there's also melting ice on the ceiling, so Elodie stands under it to catch as many drops as she can. Suddenly, the ice starts melting faster and the light coming through it turns red. Elodie opens her eyes and realizes that the dragon is breaking through the surface with fire. As the girl runs away, the beast bursts into the cave and chases after her. Elodie escapes by running into another tunnel that's too narrow for the giant monster. In this small cave, Elodie finds a message on the wall that says, "Safe here, she cannot reach," signed with the letter V. Looking around, she sees the dresses of many girls, and on another wall, their names added over the years. The letter V belongs to Victoria. Elodie takes a moment to mourn their fate, then removes the bandage from her leg, which doesn't look any better. Exhausted, she tries to sleep, hugging the lantern with the glowing slugs. Suddenly, she starts seeing the ghosts of previous victims, suffering from pain, fear, and a sense of betrayal. Victoria adds her name to the wall and suddenly turns to Elodie to say that everything is a lie. At that moment, the girl wakes up and discovers that her wound is covered in slugs. In a panic, she starts removing them, but it turns out their slime has healing properties, and her leg is already healed. She then puts a slug on her other serious wound, apologizing for not appreciating these creatures. Who needs a doctor when you've got glowing slugs that would treat you without overcharging? Feeling better, Elodie takes a closer look and finds a map on the wall, indicating that at least one girl managed to escape. From the map, she learns that there are 3 forks in the tunnel, and she must choose the middle one and follow the crystals and the sound of music to get outside. Elodie rips off all the parts of her dress that restrict her movement, adds her name to the wall, and chooses the middle corridor, ignoring the echo of the dragon's roar. Finally, she hears a soft melody and keeps going, discovering a wall covered in crystals that make sounds and shimmer in the sunlight. Nearby lies a crown with the letter V, suggesting that Victoria managed to get out. When it turns out that the crystals are sharp, Elodie tears off more pieces of her dress to wrap her hands and feet, then uses the crown to start climbing, unaware that the dragon is watching her. She climbs upwards, but suddenly, one of the crystals breaks, causing her to fall. The dragon opens its mouth to swallow its meal. At the last moment, Elodie uses the crown to hold on and avoid falling. Turns out the dragon will have to postpone lunch. As Elodie hears the dragon approaching, she speeds up and finally reaches the exit, only to discover that she's on the edge of a cliff high up the mountainside. Devastated, she falls to her knees and cries. But suddenly, the sound of neighing horses draws her attention to a group of riders at the foot of the mountain. When she tries to call for help, the dragon flies in and blocks the opening. At the last second, she backs away, noticing another message on the wall, "Not safe," signed by V. Next to it lies a body, proving that Victoria died and never made it out. The dragon prepares to breathe fire, but stops when it hears a male voice calling Elodie's name. As the beast flies off to investigate, it turns out that Lord Bayford has arrived with 2 knights and a guide to search for his daughter. They descend into the cave on a rope and search the grotto, while Elodie follows their voices to find her way. Entering a new tunnel, she's shocked by the sight of a nest with 3 dead baby dragons. She remembers Victoria's words and realizes that Isabel lied. The dragon wasn't the last of its kind, and it wasn't the one who attacked first. A flashback reveals that the king entered the cave to kill the dragon's offspring, so the dragon's attack was an act of revenge. She killed the knights, as shown at the beginning, but when it came to the king, she told him that death would be too easy and that he should suffer just as she did. Since then, the royal family has been feeding the dragon 3 women with mixed blood, so they could pass as royal daughters. Elodie then finds her father and his men, but doesn't reveal her presence for safety. Soon, the dragon appears and grabs a knight, lifting him into the air and dropping him from a great height. Talk of going for skydiving without a parachute. While the guide hides in panic, the dragon grabs the second knight and crushes him with her claw, then interrogates Bayford. He explains that he came to save his daughter. Bayford tries to attack with a sword, but the dragon knocks the sword right out of his hand and it goes clattering down onto the rocks below. Elodie sneaks around, waiting for the right moment, and the dragon orders Bayford to call his daughter. Bayford delivers a remorseful speech, admitting that he made a terrible mistake, then shouts for Elodie to stay hidden. The angry dragon knocks him to the ground and pierces his heart with her claw. Elodie can't hold back her tears, and the dragon hears her crying. The dragon starts looking for her, and as it nears Elodie, the guard makes a noise, distracting the beast. As the dragon moves away, Elodie says goodbye to her dying father, kissing him on the forehead. She then uses the rope he left behind and climbs upwards. So, while Elodie is climbing, the dragon finds the guide and tears him to shreds, then rushes after Elodie. At the last second, the girl manages to climb fast enough to avoid the flames that fill the cave entrance. Elodie jumps onto her father's horse, but then quickly dismounts and hides under the rocks. The horse keeps running, luring the dragon, which follows it and burns it alive. The dragon then breathes fire into the clouds, causing a terrible storm as a sign that the pact has been broken. When Isabel sees this, she immediately sends knights to kidnap Floria. Lady Bayford tries to stop them, but is stabbed with a sword. After the fire subsides, Elodie emerges from her hiding place and encounters an injured Lady Bayford who arrived on horseback. When Elodie learns what happened, she promises to save her sister and takes the horse back up the mountain. Meanwhile, Floria is taken to the bridge, but Henry refuses to perform the ritual with a child. Isabel ignores him and instead uses her own blood, cutting Floria's arm to mix their blood, then throws her into the abyss. By the time Elodie arrives at the bridge, everyone is gone, and an unconscious Floria is caught by the dragon, who hasn't killed her yet because it wants to lure Elodie to come for her sister. Desperate, Elodie descends back into the cave with a rope and, using her previous experiences, follows the same route much more quickly. After checking the map twice to find the dragon's lair, Elodie arms herself with her father's sword and sets a trap for the beast. The trap consists of armor and a rope that burns under a small fire. Elodie moves away, and when the rope burns through, the armor falls with a bang, prompting the dragon to leave its lair in search of the source of the noise. This allows Elodie to sneak into the nest and wake Floria, who moves slowly due to her injured leg. So at this point, the dragon's like, "Hold up, something's fishy here," and heads back to the lair. Floria's all, "Nope, I'm out of here," and hides, while Elodie's standing there with her sword out. She tries to explain to the dragon that they've all been played by the queen. But the dragon's not buying it and gets ready to unleash some serious fire breath. Elodie's quick thinking kicks in, and she whacks the dragon's mouth with her sword to throw off its aim. But she still ends up tumbling off the edge of the lair, getting her hands and arms all crispy, and then, splash, right into the lake. The dragon's busy pulling the sword out of its mouth, and Elodie pops up just in time to catch the sword Floria tosses her way. Then, out of nowhere, the dragon pounces on Elodie, pinning her down with its claws. It's about to go in for the kill, but Elodie pulls out her dagger and jabs it right in the beast's eye. The dragon's like, "Ow, not cool," and flings her aside. Elodie grabs the sword again and charges at the dragon, who's now got a bit of a vision problem on one side. She manages to stick the sword in the dragon's chest, but it's not doing much damage, and the dragon grabs her again. Elodie's not giving up though, and she stabs the dragon's claw, making it drop her once more. As the dragon's closing in, Elodie notices a gust of wind blowing dragon dust off a curved stalagmite, and a light bulb goes off in her head. She stands in front of the rock and taunts the dragon to let loose with its fire breath. At the last second, she leaps out of the way, and the flames bounce off the stalagmite, knocking the dragon on its butt. Later, Elodie shows the beast the scar on her hand, proving that it's been killing innocent girls all these years. The dragons all, "Please just end my misery," and Elodie drops the sword. Then she gathers up some of those glowing slugs and puts them on the dragon's body to help it heal up. Meanwhile, back at the castle, there's another wedding going on to trick the third girl of this generation. Suddenly, a coin rolls off the altar and Elodie bursts in, telling the bride to grab her family and get the heck out of there. Elodie then tells the rest of the folks that they can bounce too if they want, but only the servants are like, "Yeah, she's not messing around," and take off. Right then, the dragon shows up and torches everyone in sight, taking out Isabel and anyone with royal blood to finally put an end to this whole mess. As everyone's freaking out, Henry closes his eyes and takes the punishment, knowing he had it coming. Pretty soon, the castle's falling apart, but Elodie walks away with her head held high. A few days later, Elodie, Floria, and a healed-up Lady Bayford are getting ready to set sail on a ship loaded with gold and supplies for their people. They decide to run their land together, and Elodie even starts calling Bayford Mom instead of Stepmom. On the way home, the dragon flies by and gives Elodie a nod of mutual respect.